There's a moment in every interaction where power shifts. You feel it before you see it. Someone leans forward. Someone raises their voice. Someone interrupts you mid-sentence. And in that split second, your instinct screams at you to explain yourself, to justify, to defend, to prove you're not what they're implying you are. And the second you do, you lose. Because explanation is submission. Defense is acknowledgement of their authority over you. When you rush to clarify your position, you're not protecting yourself. You're handing them the keys to your frame. You're saying, without realizing it, you have the right to question me. You have the right to judge me. I need your approval to exist. Most people will spend their entire lives in this trap. They will explain their choices to people who have no business knowing. They will defend their boundaries to people who don't respect them. They will justify their existence to a world that never asked them to. But there is one sentence, one surgical phrase that flips the entire dynamic. It doesn't raise your voice. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't argue. It creates a void so heavy, so psychologically destabilizing that the other person's frame collapses instantly. The sentence is this: I don't need to explain myself. 6 words. And yet when delivered with the right energy, at the right moment, it does something most people think is impossible. It makes them fear you, not because you're aggressive, not because you're cruel, but because in that moment you become unreadable, unpredictable, untouchable. And the human brain is wired to fear what it cannot control. Type this in the comments if you've ever felt the urge to over-explain yourself to someone who didn't deserve your energy. I'm done justifying. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just a phrase, it's a psychological weapon. And once you understand how to use it, you will never beg for respect again. Rule 1: explanation is the language of the weak. Most people believe that if they just explain enough, clarify enough, repeat themselves enough, they'll be understood. They'll be vindicated. The other person will finally see their side. This is the trap of the articulate. You think your intelligence will save you. You think your logic will win the argument. But Machiavelli knew something you're still learning. Logic doesn't win wars. Emotion does. And the emotion you trigger by refusing to explain is more powerful than any argument you could construct. When you explain yourself, you're doing several things simultaneously. First, you're accepting their frame. You're saying, you have the authority to question me and I must answer. This is the first concession. The moment you step onto their battlefield, you're playing their game by their rules. Second, you're revealing your insecurities. The things you defend most aggressively are the things you're least sure about. A confident man doesn't need to explain why he made a decision. A king doesn't justify his decrees to peasants. Third, you're training them. You're teaching them that if they push hard enough, if they question loud enough, you will fold. You will give them access to your internal world. And once they have that access, they own you. The Machiavellian move is to refuse entry entirely. When someone demands an explanation, why did you do that? Why didn't you tell me? Why are you being like this? You pause, you hold eye contact, and you deliver the void. I don't need to explain myself. Notice what happens in that moment. The air changes, their brain scrambles. They were prepared for a fight. They were prepared for you to justify, to apologize, to give them ammunition. Instead, they hit a wall, a smooth, impenetrable surface that reflects their aggression back at them. They will try to fill the void. What do you mean you don't need to explain? I'm just asking a question. You don't bite, you remain still. I've made my decision. This is not rudeness. This is frame control. You're not being difficult. You're being sovereign, and sovereignty doesn't negotiate with interrogators. Rule 2. The void is more terrifying than the answer. Human beings are obsessed with closure. We need to know. We need to understand. We need the story to make sense. When you refuse to provide that closure, you create a psychological gap, and the mind abhors a gap. This is why silence is so powerful. This is why mystery is so magnetic. People don't obsess over what they fully understand. They obsess over what they can't figure out. When you say, "I don't need to explain myself," you're not just refusing to answer. You're forcing them to create their own narrative. And the narrative they create is almost always more intimidating than the truth. They will wonder, what is he hiding? What does he know that I don't? Is he more powerful than I thought? The void you create becomes a canvas for their fears, and fear breeds respect. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote about the importance of being both loved and feared. But if you can't be both, it is far safer to be feared. Love is conditional. Fear is structural. When you refuse to explain, you're not trying to be loved. You're installing a structure in their mind. This person operates on a different level. I cannot manipulate them with guilt. I cannot control them with questions. The mistake most people make is they try to fill every silence with reassurance. They're so terrified of being misunderstood that they overcommunicate. They think transparency is strength. But transparency without boundaries is just exposure, and exposure makes you vulnerable. The strategic operator reveals only what serves them. Everything else is protected behind the wall of, "I don't need to explain myself." Rule 3, make them justify themselves to you. Here's the reversal. The true power of this phrase isn't just defensive, it's offensive. When you refuse to explain yourself, you flip the script. Suddenly they're the ones scrambling. They're the ones trying to prove something. They're the ones justifying their right to even ask the question. Watch what happens after you deliver the sentence. After the initial shock wears off, they will start to backpedal. "I'm just trying to understand. I didn't mean it like that." "Why are you being so defensive?" They're trying to regain control. They're trying to make you feel guilty for setting a boundary. This is the manipulator's last resort: guilt. You don't take the bait, you hold the frame. "I'm not being defensive, I'm simply not interested in explaining." Notice the shift. You're no longer defending your choice, you're now evaluating their behavior. You've become the judge, and the moment you become the judge, they become the defendant. This is psychological judo. You take the energy they threw at you, the demand, the entitlement, the aggression, and you redirect it back onto them. Now they're the ones who look unreasonable. They're the ones who look desperate. They're the ones who need closure, and you've denied it. The power dynamic has inverted, and you did it with 6 words. Rule 4, control what you reveal. Most people leak information constantly. They overshare. They tell their coworkers their weekend plans. They tell acquaintances their struggles. They post their every thought on social media. This is emotional incontinence, and it destroys your mystique. Machiavelli knew that a ruler must control the narrative. If the people know too much, they start to question, they start to scheme, they start to think they're on your level. When you say, "I don't need to explain myself," you're drawing a line. You're saying, this is where your access ends. Not everyone deserves to know your reasoning. Not everyone has earned the right to your vulnerability. Not everyone is entitled to your internal world. By withholding explanation, you're not being cold. You're being selective. You're curating who gets access to your thoughts, your plans, your decisions. This creates scarcity, and scarcity creates value. When you do choose to explain something, when you do choose to let someone in, it becomes meaningful. It becomes a gift, not an obligation. But if you explain everything to everyone, your words become noise. Your vulnerability becomes commonplace, and commonplace things are treated with contempt. Rule 5, they will test you Hold the line. The first time you use this sentence, people will be shocked. They're not used to you setting boundaries. They're used to you folding. So they will test you. They will escalate. They will guilt trip. They will call you arrogant, cold, selfish. They will say, "You've changed." Good, you have changed. You've stopped being a doormat. This is the moment where most people break. They feel the pressure of social disapproval and they backtrack. "Okay, fine, I'll explain. I didn't mean to be rude." And in that moment, they lose everything they just gained. The Machiavellian holds the line. When they escalate, you remain calm. You don't engage with the emotional manipulation. You don't defend your right to have boundaries. You simply repeat in different words the same frame, "I've made my decision and I'm comfortable with it." You're not arguing. You're not justifying. You're stating a fact about reality. And reality doesn't argue. Gravity doesn't explain itself when you fall. It just is. You must become like gravity. Inevitable, impersonal, unshakable. Rule 6, silence. After the sentence is the kill shot. Here's the tactical detail most people miss. The power of "I don't need to explain myself" isn't just in the words. It's in what comes after. Amateurs say the sentence and then keep talking. They say, "I don't need to explain myself, and besides, I just think that," and they're right back in the trap. They're explaining. The master delivers the sentence and then goes silent. Complete, total silence. You hold eye contact. You don't flinch. You don't fill the awkwardness. You let the void expand until it becomes unbearable, not for you, but for them. In that silence, they panic. They scramble. They try to regain control of the conversation. But you've already won because you've shown them something they didn't expect. You are not afraid of their disapproval. Most people are terrified of disapproval. They will do anything to smooth things over, to make people comfortable, to avoid conflict. But the person who is comfortable with discomfort is the most dangerous person in the room, because they cannot be manipulated through social pressure. When you pair the sentence with silence, you're demonstrating that you are perfectly fine with the tension. You're perfectly fine with them being upset. You're perfectly fine with the relationship changing. And that scares them, because now they realize, "I don't have leverage over this person." Rule 7, choose your battles. This is not a daily tool. Now, a warning. This sentence is a weapon, and like all weapons, it must be used strategically, not recklessly. If you walk around saying, "I don't need to explain myself to everyone about everything," you won't look powerful. You'll look like a defensive child. The power of this phrase comes from its scarcity. You use it when 1. Someone is overstepping your boundaries. 2. Someone is demanding access they haven't earned. 3. Someone is trying to guilt trip you into justifying a decision you've already made. You don't use it when 1. Someone is asking a legitimate question in good faith. 2. You're in a situation where collaboration requires transparency. 3. You're dealing with someone you trust and who has earned your vulnerability. The difference between a tyrant and a strategist is discretion. The tyrant uses force indiscriminately. The strategist uses force precisely. Machiavelli taught that a ruler should be feared, but not hated. If you overuse this phrase, you will be hated. You will be isolated. People will stop trusting you. But if you use it sparingly at the exact moment when someone is trying to cross your line, it becomes a mark of your self-respect. It becomes a signal, "I know my worth and I will protect it." Rule 8, the aftermath. Watch how they treat you next. After you've delivered the sentence and held the silence, something shifts. The dynamic changes permanently. One of two things will happen. Option 1, they respect the boundary. They step back. They stop pushing. They recalibrate how they approach you. These are the people worth keeping around. They can handle your strength. Option 2, they escalate. They double down on the guilt. They try to punish you with coldness, with gossip, with passive aggression. These are the people you need to distance yourself from. They cannot handle your sovereignty because they're addicted to control. This sentence is a filter. It separates those who respect you from those who want to use you. And here's the brutal truth. Most people want to use you. They want your time, your energy, your validation, your compliance. They don't want you. They want what you provide. When you stop providing it without question, they reveal themselves. Let them. Let the dead weight fall away. Let the users show you who they are. And when they do, believe them. You're not here to be loved by everyone. You're here to build a life of power, autonomy, and respect. And that requires you to be selective about who gets access to your inner world. Rule 9. The ultimate frame. You are the prize. Everything we've discussed in this script comes down to one foundational shift in your psychology. You must stop seeing yourself as the one who needs to earn their approval. You are the prize. This isn't arrogance. This is self-valuation. When you see yourself as the prize, you don't beg, you don't chase, you don't explain. When someone questions your decision and you say, "I don't need to explain myself," you're not being rude. You're operating from a frame where your decisions are yours to make and their approval is not required for you to move forward. Most people are walking around with an invisible sign on their back that says, "Please validate me." And the world treats them accordingly. The world uses them. But when you erase that sign, when you walk through the world with the energy of "I am complete within myself," people feel it, they sense it, and they adjust. They stop making demands. They start making requests. They stop interrupting. They start listening. They stop questioning. They start following. This is the power of the frame. And the frame is protected by boundaries. And boundaries are enforced by sentences like this one. We've reached the end, but this is not the end of the work. This is the beginning. You now have the sentence. You now understand the psychology behind it. But knowledge without application is just entertainment. The next time someone tries to corner you with a question designed to make you justify yourself, you will feel the old impulse rise. The impulse to explain, to defend, to prove. Resist it. Pause, breathe, hold eye contact, and deliver the sentence. "I don't need to explain myself." Then silence. Watch what happens. Watch how the power shifts. Watch how they scramble. Watch how you feel in your body when you hold the frame. That feeling, that quiet, simmering confidence, that's what sovereignty feels like. That's what self-respect feels like. Most people will never experience it. They will die having explained themselves to people who never mattered. But you're not most people. You're here. You're listening. You're learning the language of power. If this opened your eyes, if you felt the weight of these words, type in the comments, "I am the prize." Not because I need to hear it, because you need to see it. You need to declare it. You need to start reprogramming your nervous system to believe it. And if you want more of this, more of the forbidden psychology, more of the Machiavellian strategies that the weak will never understand, subscribe. Join the few. Because the many are still out there explaining themselves to strangers, begging for validation, wondering why the world treats them like servants. You're done begging. You're done explaining. From this moment forward, you are the one they answer to. I'll see you in the shadows.